Hi everybody, this is Collin Sngman101 Moshman. Here I am on Full Tilt. I'm playing three $10 games and one $20 game in the bottom left. And what I want to do here is discuss how stars and tilt are similar and different, as well as show you guys how to crush these low stakes games. So first we're going to raise for value in the upper left table. And you could fold ace queen here. Ace king is your only clear raise, opening from middle position. If villain checks, I'm going to go ahead and bet this. I mean, we got top pair, right? It's probably going to be good, so you just want to bet for value in a situation like this, not get too fancy. And he raises us. Against some higher stakes guys, you might be a little worried. You figure to be a hand more often than not against a draw or a king-queen type hand, so I'm going to go ahead and shove. And he folds, so maybe he had 5-6 or like king-9 total air, who knows, but just a situation where we're going to go all in during low blinds. And yeah, so that was good. The first thing that I want to talk about is rake. So anytime you're comparing two sites, your biggest concern, or at least one of them, has got to be the rake. So here we are, and 11 plus 1 isn't so bad. Okay, it's better than the old rake deal of 10 plus 1 that was more common during the in the early SNG market. But stars 15 plus 1 is a much better rake deal. So in that respect, if you have the bankroll for the 15s, you're going to be at a bit of an advantage from a rake standpoint, playing 15 plus 1s. But at the same time, there are definitely there's rake back. Okay, so cash rake back, and you can get 27% or something without having any sort of connections, and that's nicer than FPPs. So that used to be the standard, and that's one big reason I like playing tilt. And another is table selection. So I've noticed recently that I've been finding a lot softer tables on full tilt, and regardless, there's more to choose from, right? So if you have like 50% more tables opening in a given time frame, then you have much better table selection opportunities. So that's a big reason to have any other site up. Now in this bottom left table, you've got to fold this. Okay, and this you've got to read that this guy is reckless. This is a clear fold, because we still have another player left to act, and you know what, you might be ahead of this guy, but you absolutely do not want to flip in a situation like that and end up going lines. You're going to find much better spots later, so just let that one go. And I absolutely would advise, if you're normally raising in that spot, to reconsider and fold instead. Your worst option is probably the flat call, because then you're playing a big pot out of position, and you pretty much have to play hit to win. So 2/3 of the time you're not even going to pair, and those times, at least to me, kind of suck. So, and something that in a sit and go, where you really want to play tight early, you can't get involved in those situations. Here I'm not going to bluff no matter what happens. There's a slight chance my king will show down his best against a hand like 10-jack, but if not, I'm not going to. Even though I think that bastard's bluffing. Yeah. So another thing about tilt is this blind thing, okay? So you have blinds that are going up all the time, and the biggest thing there, really, that doesn't have a lot of impact on the game. You know, the fact that every 3 seconds, like, blinds go up to 26, 55, or whatever. I mean, it's just the important thing you've got to is that you know the blinds you have. And specifically, because on tilt there are no antes, and like, okay, so little little demo here for looked a lot at the tilt structure. Here we go at 15:30, 3 minutes. There are 3 minutes, And you see this ante column has some glaring omissions, and I like the ante. So, yeah, I mean, the ante gives you one more way to take advantage of weak players. You're going to make a standard 3 BB value raise with their pocket nines. If one of these guys re-raises all in, we will not call. But nonetheless, this is definitely strong enough to raise for value on the button. So mistakes that guys make, pretty much they do not adjust well to the antes, and they won't loosen up both their shoving and their calling. So normally antes do benefit you, and the big thing with tilt though is there are no antes, so it's pretty straightforward, and you just gotta think to yourself, how many blinds do I actually have? So right now, for instance, blinds of 30-60 instead of 25-50, and if you add like 550, you'd think under 10 blinds. And when they get to 120-240, okay, and you've got like 200 chips, well, you just think to yourself that 10 big blinds would be 2,400, and you've got about 400, so you have about 8 blinds. Sometimes it's helpful to do what people who want to sound smart call normalizing, which is sort of this idea that you can put in easier terms. So you can think about it in terms of what the blinds would be if they were 50-100. So with the stack of 2,000 of blinds of 120-240, it's like blinds of 50-100 having a stack of 800. So that's often an easier way and when you've got these crazy ass tilt structures. Okay, here our opponent has limped almost half of 12 hands, and we're going to raise them. Okay, we're going to be the one opening the spot with the raise to just over 3 blinds. I don't want to play a large pot, I just want to get position, maybe get immediate fold, and if not, enter the hand with a positional edge over this guy and a parallel best hand. If he checks, I will c-bet, and I will begrudgingly fold to an all-in. And it takes it down. And the flop comes paired like that. There are only 5 cards, whole cards, your opponent could have that pair him. So in a flop of 4-4-8, there are only 2 4s and 3 8s he could have that pair him. Okay, that's in distinct contrast to a flop like 2-5-8. You could have 3 2s, 3 5s, and 3 8s for a total of 9 possible whole cards. Now, you might be thinking, if I wanted to analyze a hand after the flop, then I wouldn't be playing a Sin-and-Go tournament, particularly a turbo one. And to that I'd say fair enough. Okay, I mean, if you play really well after the flop, that's great, and you will have an edge over your fear flop opponents. But if you suck at flops, you can still beat the Sin-and-Go, just through tight aggressive play and having really good late game decisions. Ace-Jack, under the gun, essentially in a 7-handed situation is a fold, particularly without a small blind. So, you know, in an MTT, you could certainly raise that. Even there, it'd be a little loose, but you don't want to raise those hands in a Sin-and-Go. Some play err on the side of being a little too tight in terms of your opening standards during lower mid blinds. Now, another interesting thing about tilt, which seems kind of subtle but is actually pretty cool, is this button you have to bet the pot. And the reason it's nice is because it gives for weak players to make. And common mistakes involve just blindly hitting a button and hoping for the best, such as the call button when you limp, the raise button to min raise, and here, okay, if I want, like, this would be an idiotic raise, of course, but I could go ahead and bet the pot, which is 280. So the kind of the idea there is the suggestion is that a good normal raise size is a pot-sized one, and that's normally not true in a Sin-and-Go. So normally I'm looking to raise under the pot like 2.5 or 3 blinds, and not less, not more than that. The exception, of course, is when you're in shove fold mode. But small ball, raising to 2.5, 3 blinds for a typical raise size is generally your best bet. And sometimes you can pick off these guys that routinely raise steal to the pot. So that's just something to look out for. And I am going to fold this shot draw. You always want to auto-click buttons so that when you're multi-tabling, you don't have to revisit folding a weak hand. And here, this is showing either call or raise. Raising is a little more traditional. I'm going to go ahead and call because you can play any pocket pair very well for set value when you're in the. So with a pocket pair, jacks plus, you probably want to raise, and 7s through 9s you can really do either limp or raise. 6s and below you'd want to just limp behind that chain of limpers. And if you were to have folded that hand, you'd definitely be leaving some money on the table. Pocket 9s on the button behind some limpers. But you could make a lot worse mistakes. If you were really loose early, that would be a much bigger mistake than failing to take advantage of some of these potentially profitable situations. This is a fold. We have a raise to over 5 blinds, and mainly we're calling in the hopes of flipping. Either of these guys could wake up with a strong hand. So that's probably about a chip neutral call, but you're forfeiting equity there, so definitely give that one a fold. Another nice thing about tilt is when these celebrities who sit down in red come, you can get easier guys to play the tables who want to do it to play people who they've seen on TV or whatever. So that's always pretty cool. And some of them, even the big names, don't actually do super well in the sit and go like I've discussed. And that's not because they're, not smart or something like that. I mean, they're, most full tilt pros are clearly capable of beating these games. But the thing is that if you haven't given a lot of thought to sit and go specific strategy, and instead just tournament strategy in general, that's not enough. Okay, the sit and go requires a very distinct strategy, namely a very tight one early, and if you haven't studied up on it specifically, you're going to be in a lot of trouble when you find yourself against guys who specialize in sit and goes, even if in a convention such as not being a total idiot after the flop, maybe you could beat them, but they've just given a lot of thought to high blind push fold decisions, and because of that, they can get an edge on you. So watch out for that. And this is a pretty common chip distribution for me to have playing 4 tables of the stage. One guy a little ahead, one a little behind, 2 about even. And sometimes you double early, but a lot of the time you just go into the late stages of the game, make really good push fold decisions, and that's where you're getting your profit. One thing that I've been doing a lot less recently, relative to my more aggressive, playing a tight aggressive style, re-steal a bit less when some guy raises and I come over top. And some guys were saying that they get called a lot wider, and that's not always the case, particularly at the bubble. But I make a lot less of those when it's entirely predicated on fold equity. The idea that, hey, he could fold, which should be good, so I'll come over top. And pretty much the best times to raise steal are when there's a really strong reason why the guy's likely to fold. Like in particular, your chip leader and he's second chip leader into the bubble. and you've got some kind of decent hand. Here the pot's 300, and ace-king out of position is a great hand just to shove when the pot's at all decent. Plus this guy appears to be kind of passive, so we could even be called by a worse hand like ace-queen. And just winning 300 immediately is totally cool with ace-king out of position. That's kind of a common idea that ace-king is really good for pre-flop all-ins. Since you have an ace and a king, there are only 3 pocket aces left and 3 pocket kings left, rather than the 6 and 6 that there are normally when you don't already have an ace and a king. So usually it's kind of like a free roll, because worst case is you're flipping, and best case is that you have him dominated with a better ace. So this is about the weakest. I would not open ace-9 here, and I'm going to go ahead and open ace-10 with raise of about 2.5, 3 blinds. If Girity re-steals me, I call. If either of these guys come all in over top, I'll have to lay it down. And these stacks are too awkward. You won't show a profit shoving 12.5 blinds with Jack-Queen. So you could limp, but I don't like this awkward stack, so I'll just fold. And this is a slightly tough position. This guy's already all in, so I'm going to go ahead and fold this. I've got no immediate fold equity, and I think this guy's probably going to call pretty wide. So we'll see about that one. Guy with 22.6, 16.1 could definitely be opening kind of light. And I'm guessing we had him beat, but it's good we folded against the kings, of course. And we did. Had him a kick to low. You don't normally want to open with ace-10 offsuit from early position. So he made a little mistake there. If it's folded to us, we would have about 8 blinds there. And that's pretty neutral. And here with 10 blinds, I'm going to go ahead and shove ace-jack. And this will show a profit, not a huge one, but it'll show a profit. So we flip, and a lot of the guys who play actively like to flip. It works out for this guy. You know, I'm not going to say that that's a bad call, because if you want to negate the skill advantage, it's not necessarily bad. But if you think that, you've given these games a good amount of thought, and you can outplay your opponents, you don't want to be making these kind of chip neutral calls where you're getting laid slight odds, and you think you're going to show, usually be up against 2 overcards. Those are situations where, unless you really want to increase variance, you're usually better off laying down. And here we're not doing anything fancy. We were just putting our last 100 anytime we have a decent hand. And I'll go ahead and shove ace-king. You could also make a small raise and call a re-steal. Ah, brutal. Alright guys, so that's the 22. Now, I have to show a profit on this, right? So we've got to do good in our remaining games. Okay, I'll play for stacks with this guy. We're about 8 blinds, 9 blinds. And if he shoves, I'll call. If he raises, I just shove. And we figure to be ahead. Okay. So that's a profitable shove. And I'll shove suited ace-jack with around 5 blinds. Oh, nice! I flushed him. Oh, it's so sweet. Okay. It's a sign that good things are to come. So, we flip again. Another guy who wants to flip with us. And oh yeah. Yeah, okay. Everything balanced out. You could really either fold, call, or raise here. I'll go ahead and limp, since this guy isn't super aggressive. He's raising about a third of the hands that he limps with. And he makes a huge overshove for about 20 blinds, which I obviously just give to him. If you wanted to fold there or limp, or raise, you could do that as well. And on the bubble here, we're going to be pretty laggy and come in when we have a decent hand. Raise it up. So blinds of 8160, a common raise is going to be like 360, which I'll do right now. Okay, we could easily have everyone fold because people tend to tighten up a lot on the bubble, and if not, our hand has a lot of post-flop potential. Suited Queen 10 can absolutely hit you a nice flop. And notice also that when you raise from, four-handed, as my friend Jeff has pointed out to me before, it's a cool situation because the cutoff looks like it's under the gun, so you often get more credit for those raises. More so often than the bubble. Here we have a limp, and this is an unexploitable shove. In other words, even if he knows exactly our shoving range, we're going to show a profit here. And most guys aren't being too clever and trying to trap. They just don't really think ahead and don't know that good players will raise all in with any two cards there. And I would have. I didn't need an ace high to shove there. So that 5-jack, you could really raise any that has some kind of potential when they're called. If you raise like 7 or 800 here, it's a little awkward because most of the stacks have been wagered and you're out of position. So what do you do when you miss? I'm just going to check, play it to win. Ace Queen, I'll shove. Oh wow, look at this. This one guy has all the chips. So I would need a strong hand to shove because we have a lot of equity in this situation, against 3 guys that are really close to out. But Ace Queen is too strong to let go there. And I'll fold rather than force a play. The weak jack. We strongly want that guy to fold, which is good. And I'm just going to try to limp with this guy. You could raise. I'm going to be a little clever here and try to limp. Maybe you'll shove on us. And if now I have a pot of 400, stack of 700, and we can just go all in regardless of the flop. When you're deeper, you don't want to do that. But here it looks like it worked out. Unless he hits a club. Yes, a full house. Okay. Okay. I love it. A club that paired the board. The best kind of club. Now, if it's folded to us, no matter what happens, we're just going to shove. And the one thing we really don't want to do is get queue with smaller raises because we don't want to gamble. When it's the bubble, you want to win as many chips as you can without gambling. So we'd rather just take the 700 in the table rather than gamble with this guy when it's the bubble. But we do get in as a 70-30 favorite. Could it be? Oh yeah! Oh yeah! So sweet. Okay, here in this table we're getting 4-1, and our call closes the action. So I think that I have the 20% pot equity necessary to make this a call. And now we're just playing hit to win. So I'm not going to bluff into a small side pot and also look like a maniac in the process. Because I'm going to be making some crazy aggressive shoves. And this guy should have a hand. He does. He has a nut flush. Even weak players tend to want to be able to knock out their opponents at the bubble. And usually that's correct. If he limps, we're not going to shove, and I'll just give this to him. Notice that we started off the hand about 14 blinds deep, and that's not a profitable shove with junk. So normally 10 blinds or shallower. That's when you kind of want to shove those chunkier hands. You could absolutely fold this. I'm going to go ahead and raise these guys. The big blind in particular is a little tight. And I'll make a slightly loose raise with a weakish king and hope to pick it up immediately. with pocket fives. Absolutely. And I'll make a non-all-in because I've raised in this guy a few times, and doesn't really matter. And here I'm going to go ahead and shove on this guy. And he makes a big overshove. We'll just give it to him rather than have a probable flip. And even though this isn't working out good for us, that's definitely a correct shove. Okay, sending a wizard will show it having a profit, particularly when you're sucking out on everybody in sight. So we're not going to shove on the short stack. There's no small blind, and he knows that he's probably going to be the bubble boy. So we're going to have a lot better results playing against shorter stacks, or stacks who look like they will not bubble as long as they avoid a big gamble. And I'm going to see if this guy lets me limp. We haven't tried it once. And I'll certainly call this all in getting 8-1. So he's playing pretty hyper aggressively, and I'm going to stick to a strictly raise fold game because of that. Oh, quad aces. Nice. Good stuff. Okay, I'll raise the pot here. If he re-steals, I'll call an all-in because ace-10 is really strong, even 20 blinds deep. And I'm going to fold my 6-4 with kind of the awkward 12 blind stack. Ace queen, we're happy to play for stacks. If he raises, I shove. And with 12 blinds, I'll check this. You could shove as well. And I'm going to bet out and hope that he raises, in which case I will shove on him. If he raises, he'd probably just shove and I'd call. So, we'll see. I'll min-raise with the 5-7. And the 10-jack. One sec. Okay, I'm going to fold this because this guy's often going to shove. And the suited 10-jack isn't profitable to shove. I'm going to raise to 700. And if he shoves, I'll make that decision. Most likely I'll have to fold. I'll make a small raise here with a 6-8. Which takes it. Awesome. And Jack 5 will fold. Jack 5 was really a pretty weak hand. And I'm going to go ahead and raise this to 1200. Okay, we have an above average hand. And I'm pretty sure his weakness, his limp, is literally weakness. And I'm going to go ahead and shove on this guy because I have the same belief that he's also literally weak since the last couple of times he's limp, we've checked behind. So it'd be kind of a random time for him to spring a trap. I mean, there's no reason he would have to think that we'd raise. So 10-8, I'll shove for 5 blinds. And I'll raise the pot. It's just a bit more. Make it look like it might be a value raise. Can't shove 3-4. Well, he had limped, but even so, I don't really like that. And 4-10, I will try limping. Kind of the idea with these limps. If your opponent isn't raising on you a lot, No, he is, but in general, then limping is usually pretty good. Okay, if you weekend, you're getting 3-1 in position, and that's a pretty good combination. Here we're getting over 2-1, so if you'd raised any bigger, I would fold, but that's tough because I think if I connected, I could have won his stack. But it kind of makes the guy prove to you when you have sort of these awkward stacks of like 13, 17 blinds that he will indeed shove your limps before you go into just raise fold mode. Okay, so we connect with this flop nicely, and I'll just go ahead and bet. And if he raises that, then I'm happy to play for stacks. And I'll shove 4 or 5 blinds with an ace. And now I'm going to bet this for value. I mean, we got top pair, so no reason to let more cards come. And I'm going to raise this one to 900. And he folds, which is good. That's pretty much what we're looking for. King 3 suited if he limped, you could certainly raise. The most black and white aspects of these shove fold wars is when you sub 10 blinds in stacks, and then there's often a concrete right or wrong answer, but that's less so with over 10 blinds. You should play a lot more of an exploitative style based on what your opponent's doing. So if he's folding a lot, then you raise a lot before the flop. If he's hyper loose, oh nice. This is a money situation. Now if I just call this, the pot's gonna be 2,400 with stacks of 4,000. So I'm gonna get a little fancy again and just call, and I'll check to him, let him see bet, and then shove over top. You could also, of course, just reshove, and that'd be fine. And at this point, rather than the more draws get there, I'm going to go ahead and make I'll just shove on him. So this I can shove. You can make a smaller raise, but... And he calls us with a big draw. Oh, and he hits it. So I guess that's what I get for getting cute. Okay. And Queen Jack, you will not show profit shoving here. So I'll fold. And 8 King. Okay, there's 1750 on the table. You could re-steal this. I'm going to go ahead and make the call. And this is a flop unlikely to have connected with him. So I'm going to go ahead and try leading out. If he raises, I'll give him the pot. So he puts me all in, and I'll concede it, and go for shoving on future hands. And with the blinds still at 255, we're in shove fold mode. And a 9-10, I'll just show a reasonable profit against the guy calling a little narrower. And with the 7 King, we're about 7 blinds deep. Pretty chip neutral. So you could shove this, I'll fold. I think that's not a very big profit or loss either way. And I will look at Wizard after this game explicitly with you guys and see if I'm making any mistakes. I'm going to shove an E2 right now. I can interpret this as weakness, so... I hope I'm not making a lot of mistakes. That'd be kind of embarrassing, but... I'm going to put it all on the line and check it out with you guys. An offsuit 10 with 6 blinds, I believe will show a nice profit here. So, but like 20. Make it look like again it might be for value. And we'll see. 3-6 is a fold. 4 or 5 suited is... You don't want to make a small raise there with 2 guys so you can come over top with that 4 or 5 suited. This is a great shoving hand, but I don't think I can call here. Oh man, stupid background pictures up. Let's see what we have. Ace 5, 7 blinds, you can shove any ace, for sure. And the suited King Jack, I will absolutely shove. We have a min raise. I'm going to re-raise all in. I don't know if this guy's all that strong, and there's 1750 on the table. When he calls, we could absolutely be flipping. So I'll hope for the best here. And nice suited 9-5 with about 5 blinds, I believe. Will show profit shoving. So I'm going to raise to 4 blinds. And ace 10 for sure is a shove here. So one thing you guys may have noticed is that you should shove very wide in sub 10 big blind push forward battles, which is always pretty good advice. Pocket 5s, pretty clear shove. And a lot of times at this point you think, well, I've shoved on him a lot, I don't know if he's really going to fold. But you know what the bottom line is, if he's got trash, he will fold. And this will show a profit. So I'm going to shove on him. Well, okay, in general, it will show a profit. We could still suck out. Oh, and we do! Oh my god, you guys probably think that, like, every hand is just one outrageous suck out after another. I guess it kind of is. Here we have 2 very borderline decisions. I'm going to go ahead and shove this one. And the 7-5. I could probably make a very slightly profitable shove there as well. I'll let that go on kind of a marginal decision. You know, it depends a lot on the shoving range, which we don't have a great idea of yet. But getting laid 1.4 to 1, I'll go ahead and wait for a better spot. So there are actually a lot, and with 5 blinds I'll shove an E2 here. There are actually a lot of hands where I'm pretty curious to see Wizards take on with this one, where I think the decisions have actually been really kind of chip neutral. So we'll see. I'm probably going to be calling that if he shoves. And I'd love to call this guy who's not shoving very wide, but again, we can't do that with trash. And this is going to show a profit with an E2, most likely. Oh, brutal. Maybe we'll split it. Oh, come on. Nice! An outright win. I never suck on more than in these videos. I should play, like, literally all of my matches on Stoxpoker videos, and then I'd be unstoppable. Oh, man. With under 10 blinds, I'll shove any king. This is pretty close. You could shove that, and I'll make a pretty chip neutral fold. See, what does this guy expect? You've seen my last couple of games. He knows that entering the flop with a better hand than me just is not going to be working out that often. Okay, 6 blinds to the king is a definite shove. And in this, I'm looking to call this guy. I mean, he's really shoving pretty wide, and he's playing it well. I mean, you've got to be loose aggressive in this kind of a match. You know, high blind push fold. And that guy's doing exactly what he should be doing. So normally the way to exploit that is by calling a little wider. But you don't want to get frustrated like some guys in NBA calling with junk. So, and this way, make the call. And usually this is going to be split. Oh, is he turning the tables on me? Bastard. Okay. I guess I can't complain too heartily. So what I'm going to do now here is pull up Sitting a Wizard, and let's see exactly second, guys, and we'll take a look at the results. Just so you guys can see quite how lazy I am, trial version expires in 3 days. New machine, and I'm literally going to run out the before I go ahead and transfer a registered version onto this machine. It's really pretty rough, I just noticed that. And let's take a look now at these 4 games that we just played, and see how I did. Okay, so game number one, and I'm not gonna. Okay, there are a lot of these yellow marks and green marks, and I won't look at those as much. I'm just gonna look at the ones that are most likely an error. So this is the one where we had the long shove forward battle against a pretty good opponent, and the only move it was my failing to shove with a 7-5. In this particular situation, if the guy is calling 40%, I can pretty much shove any two cards and show a profit. In our 10-man $100 buy-in, 30. Let's see if we agree with the calling range. And okay, so we're about the blinds here are 300, 600, about 6 blinds deep. I don't think he's gonna be calling with a low king. He will be calling with any ace. I'd say like 35%. Okay. And that actually extends, of course, our pushing range because he's folding more often. So with about 6 blinds and a guy calling standard range like this, and if he's calling a little wider, okay, so he is now calling with these weak kings, then you need slightly tighter standards, or pretty much only 2 low offsuit cards, are the hands that you should definitely fold. And okay, it's the only one that we made a clear error in that one, according to Wizard, which I agree with there. This next one, I'll take a look at this hand. This is just the one where I was already blinded out, and I don't think that is too significant because it's just looking for a spot. This one looks like we played pretty good. And in this last one, okay, 2 errors. Let's see what I fucked up on. 8-5. Okay, so I'm actually kind of surprised to see that Wizard doesn't like this one. This is one of kind of, and I said that I thought it was weakness and shoved on him. In the table, I'm sorry, the 1,000 on the table without. And opening top 60, well, I think actually a little bit slimmer. Say, okay, maybe top 50. And this is so read dependent, it's really tough to say. And then when I shove on him, okay, this looks reasonable. And I'm losing, I'm losing about $1.40. I'm actually kind of surprised that this was a pretty solid shove. And based on these assumptions, is that when he calls and we lose, we are out of the. We get second pretty easily. I don't know. I guess this is kind of close. It depends on your read, and maybe it's about the loosest you'd want to shove. Any deeper, any weaker hand you don't want to shove. But I don't think that's so bad. So this is the resale, my big resale moment. I really like to come over. So again, I thought this guy was kind of weak and we were a pretty solid hand. But at the same time, it looks like this guy's going to come in third. So he opens with the top 40%. And it's really read dependent. I think that's reasonable. I mean, maybe more like top 35. Okay, so say top third of hands. Right now, mid kings are in. Hands like suited Jack 9 are out. That's roughly reasonable. Calling with 20. That I disagree with. Okay, he knows if he calls and loses, he's automatically out in third place. And I don't think I really agree with. It's actually going to call narrow, and only with his decent aces. Good pair. Let's say even 14. I think that should. Even that isn't quite enough. Okay, with a .07 edge. If he's calling more like 12, I'm guessing though we will be able to. So if he's calling like 12 or 13% and like mid pairs, then we're. This one's pretty marginal. If you wanted to, but I don't think the raise is too bad either. And Moshman as lucky in my